The gentleman that was escorted out, is he back or is he left? We don't want. I do not want to stomp on his rights. So.
I think he's waiting for you in the parking lot.
Does that mean I need protection getting out of here, Captain? You're walking with us. Okay, go ahead. A name again. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Kim Reed. I am a resident of Eustis, Florida. I grew up in Umatilla, Florida.
In June 2016, Mr. Sabatini submitted his application to serve on the Mount Dora Library Advisory Board for the City of Mount Dora and listed 106 East Avenue, Mount Dora as his home address. I added the Mount Dora because I'm not so sure that everybody understood that that was a different city, but that is a different city. Notwithstanding might happen to us, and that's why you elect us to do this. We all have master's degrees. We all understand where you're coming from, and we also understand where we're coming from. It's important.
Hi, my name is Gary French, 506 Pinedale Street. Lived in Eustis 23 years, and all the legalese aside, earlier you casually swagger mentioned your master's degree, and I think when he's away getting his master's degree that you mentioned, now you're holding it against him. It seemed like it was very important for you to mention it, but it's not important for him to go get it. Now, I don't care. I don't have a dog in the fight or whatever, but it just seems like, why did you mention it if it's not important? You know, and that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
He's not been able to do is share any of his information.
You've never asked me once.
That's an opportunity you have to provide.
Oh,
I didn't ask.
I'm just going to throw out every single document that you asking. You purposely cherry-picked the documents and built a case based on false, limited documents. I explained the documents. You can continue to spend all of the city's time and resources trying to build a case towards me, or you could focus on the future of the city. It's your choice.
One of the things you could do, too, is based on what I'm seeing here tonight, is you could offer to resign from the board, from the commission, and also we would stop having to spend all this money on this.
You should be embarrassed for having even suggested
that. Not at
that.
all. Not at all. Please don't mistake your applause as being for that. There are some people in here that are also thinking the same way, that the charter has to be upheld. So
you're not upholding the charter.
Listen up,
you're interrupting it.
I'm not.
Yes,
I am not
you
at all.
are.
One of the things we need to remember too is there are a lot of folks here who are non-residents. We're okay with your comments. Well, a few are residents. Hold on, please. I'll get to you. But you have to remember too that there's 19,000 residents that we're also going to talk about. We need to refer, or we need to remember those folks who don't come out here tonight. So we need to make sure as commissioners that we uphold the charter and continue to work forward. And I think those are all the alternatives that Mr. Sabatini, Commissioner Sabatini, should have thought of. So I'm at a point where, does Commissioner have any more comments? We'll go to public comment. Okay, public comment. And I think there was...
I believe that my attorney, talked to the clerk, and maybe he can have a few words before the public does. Thank you.
I won't take more than my 3 minutes either. My name is Jimmy.
Here, and to pick this as our fight, I strongly disagree. And I'll tell you what is sad. I was going to resign from my seat in January. I really was. But then after that meeting in January, and you all remember that first meeting in January, I decided that I needed to stay. I needed to stay and finish my term. But I'm going to tell you, it saddens my heart to see that we're going to sit here and choose this as our fight. Now, people can say a lot of mean things about me. I honestly don't even care what people think about me. But one thing you can bet on, I won't be a puppet for anybody. And I will do what is right.
Let's keep the applause down. One of the things we need to remember... Can clear the room, please.
That's tough.
We can clear the room if we need to. We said we're going to keep this and civil as much as we can here. Now, we can argue about this all the way through, but there is, I would entertain a motion if anyone is considering that, and I already put it on the floor, and if any of the commissioners would like to address that, please do.
up or down on the main issue, he was referencing a recall provision in the charter. If you're ever displeased with one of your commissioners, you can recall them. If the people in this audience don't believe that I'm a resident, they could actually start a recall as early as January next year. The same residents, if they're not pleased with some of the votes the other commissioners have made, for example, spending close to $100,000 in hard-earned taxpayer money, they can also begin a recall election. It only takes 1,200 votes for the question to be asked. I think Mr. Roebuck and some other people said they would personally commit to supporting anyone who was so irresponsible with taxpayer dollars.
I'm going to make this
tonight. If we do this indefinitely, I think it's just the point where, I mean, I already retained an attorney at this point. I don't want the taxpayers paying a dime more for this. And if we could come with a resolution that we could start assisting our own citizens as opposed to hiring more attorneys.
Okay, do I have a motion? No motion?
Move to, what is it?
The motion was to, I'm sorry, to make sure I have this right here. To charge Commissioner Sabatini with conduct constituting grounds for forfeiture of office based on information we received here from Tanner Bishop, and we would, well, that's the motion. And do I have is there a motion?
I'm gonna move that we do that.
Okay, is there a second?
Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay, now.
All right,
we
now
can
discussion.
Okay. So one of the things in the residency application I think people had questions about was the Mount Dora address for the summer application last year. My family owns an apartment building in Mount Dora. It's a real estate agency on the bottom floor. There's an apartment above it. Last summer, when I lived with my parents, the apartment was occasionally empty. I would often stay there, hang out there, entertain people downtown Mount Dora, have drinks, dinner, hang out there, read, study when I was working for the judge in Daytona, then come back to Eustis, my actual home. No lease, no utilities, no real residency, no mail, no nothing, no actual left lifestyle at that place. Just want to clear that up for the record. That was what it was. It was a second residence, almost like a vacation home. Because I love Lake County, I love all the towns, I wanted to serve on various boards. So I got on some different charitable boards, government boards. I applied to the Mount Dora Library Advisory Board as an alternate position. Just wanted to help out the local library. I happen to love libraries. I got on the Eustis Code Enforcement Board at the same time. I was informed the exact same week from the city clerk of Mount Dora that I could not be on two boards in two different government entities, two different cities. When she called me and told me that, I said, well, what do I do, resign? She says, yeah, you have to choose one. I said, well, absolutely, I'll choose one. I'll choose the Eustis one, my hometown that I love more than any other town in the world. I just wanted to help the library in the other one. It happened to be that the library board in Eustis, or I don't know if we have one, there was no vacancy for that. And so that's why I did it. I resigned from that board the exact same day, apologized for the error, and came back to Eustis in terms of my government service. I didn't even do any. I didn't even go to a single meeting in the Mount Dora one. So just for the record, that's what that was, if anyone had any issues with that. I mean, I do not own a home, do not have a homestead. I lived at that point, I live now in an apartment, I lived at that point with my parents' house. As a person who's preparing to buy a home and saving money, I've always considered my parents' home my address. It's on my student loan paperwork, my Florida bar application, my car title, registration, concealed weapons permit, passports, the application I use for everything. Everything in my life, every ounce of mail goes there. It's my military home of record. It's everything. And it will take me countless hours to gather all these documents and prepare for litigation if you want, but you can take me on my word and know that as my teacher, Miss Alberti, that I truly love Eustis and lived in Eustis. And that's all I'll say about that.
And I have never questioned that, ever. But I thank you for the clarification for the Mount Dora, applying to be on the board and then being told you couldn't be on the board, and then you saying, okay, I rescinded, but somebody didn't tell the board because they went to the meeting and the mayor appointed him. And this is the big thing for me. I was like, how can this happen? And if you're saying that it was a mistake on your part.
Absolutely. And I apologize for it.
Okay. That's That was the main issue I was looking at. Now, the 2-year residency, we knew going into this that it probably could not be upheld.
Yeah, provide you with some clarification. When Commissioner Brett was here, he indicated that he was going to move outside the city limits. He asked the commission to have an ordinance basically that would permit him to do that and still remain a commissioner. Mm-hmm. We looked into it. The 2-year requirement is suspect. It has not been determined to be invalid, but other jurisdictions have determined that 2 years is too much, and they've invalidated it. So we tried to address it. We have a charter provision that might be invalid. So what we did is we brought it to the voters. We had a referendum. We noted in the language of the referendum that court cases have held that 2 years is too much. Let's go to a 1 year, and the voters said no. And so we have this charter provision still on the books. But the opinion I gave in Mr. Brett's situation was that that 2-year provision is likely invalid. And that's why we took the corrective action we tried to take. Unsuccessfully.
All right.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say?
I just want to say, because I was here with the Bill Brett situation, and it was a decision he made to leave the council. I think that.
Okay. For anybody who doesn't know, this is Mr. Kerry Baker.
Kerry Baker, 244 Blue Branch Street, Eustis resident.
Also Lake County appraiser.
Lake County property appraiser. When I receive documents for homestead, and you have to be a resident, permanent resident, we gather all sorts of documents. And rarely are they all neatly that particular address. Matter of fact, as you might remember, there's a requirement you have to live in a house as of January 1st. You have to live in January 1st to qualify for homestead, but you don't have to file for it till March. It's very common that in March, the application will have a Ohio or New York driver's license. But I don't say, well, the requirement was that you had to be in January 1st, and by golly, you're showing me you have a driver's license that showed you were living in New York. Well, they show me other documentation that shows they were actually living where they say they were living. Yes, the driver's license and their voter's registration might say New York or Ohio. I still look at, are they living where they say they're living? And that is the actual legal standard that I go by. And there is in law, it does actually specifically say if you leave temporarily, and school is considered temporarily, and you come back, work is considered temporarily, and you come back. When you come back, your home is still your home. You don't lose your homestead. And I do deny people. We tell people that we check their records, and we do make them straighten. Like if they have a New York driver's license, we make them change it. Now I believe them. And, I look at other documents, utilities and such.